Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Greystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Greystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongreystone.com.
Alright guys, welcome to the podcast. Episode 11. If this is the first time that you've come to listen to this podcast, you've got 10 previous episodes to get through, and I highly recommend you go and give them a little listen. This is the number one podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation, so you can design your life and be who you want to be and live an inspired life. So welcome to the podcast. It's been a busy week, been a quick week this week. It's gone quite quickly for me. Lots of great feedback from last week's episode, and some of the feedback I'm getting on the social media. I know I mention it a lot, but it just blows me away. I had someone write to me today and say, this is the first time I've ever had this much savings in my account. I'm already feeling better. I feel amazing. And just it's how the concepts and the principles that I'm sharing in this podcast is really having a benefit and an impact on people's lives. So really glad that I'm able to get a message out to people in this medium. So thanks for listening. If you haven't already given this a little rating, give it a little review. It's at over 100 ratings. I'm trying to get to I'd love to get to 100 reviews. I think there's about 60 or 70 reviews left on iTunes. If you can leave a little review, take a few seconds just to leave a review, that would be much appreciated. So this week, I've been quite active on social media, particularly Instagram. I've been putting up a couple of Instagram live videos this week, sharing some kind of insights on wealth creation, financial independence, and they've all been spurred from messages that I've received on those platforms. And I just want to kind of share with you something that happened earlier on in the week, because I started talking about on the Instagram stories about how if you was to kind of stand in a room and there was 10,000 people in the room and you asked them the question, who wants to be financially independent, about 99 to 100% of the hands would go up, right? And I then said, but if you ask the question, how many people are now financially independent right now, most of the hands, almost all of the hands would probably go down, unless you was in some kind of, elite group, super elite group, most of the hands would go down. And the truth is, less than 1% of people actually achieve financial independence. And all that indicates is, if they all want to be financially independent, but only 1% do it, all it means really is that people don't live by their true values. That's essentially all it means. They don't live by their true values, otherwise they would have planned their life to be financially independent. Or they don't truly value financial independence. So they just kind of think that they want to be financially independent, but they don't. And they don't really know what it means. And they might just have some kind of unrealistic expectation about what it actually is to be financially independent. And what you find is, these people say that they want to be financially independent, but they end up not demonstrating that in their day-to-day activities. They don't demonstrate the fact that they want to be financially independent in their actions. So they'll buy, consumables. They'll consume lots of depreciating items, materialistic items, and they don't buy assets. And the reason that they buy consumables normally is to live up to the expectations of other people. And what that does is it just moves them further and further away from financial independence. So what I was getting at on the story is I said, when you truly value freedom, you block out everyone else's opinion and you go after what you want. And I gave the example that if there was a little kid playing a computer game, he gets up every day and he's playing the computer game, like really dedicated. He's driven. He jumps out of bed. It's the first thing he thinks about. He wants to play the computer game and he wants to complete the computer game. And he gets up every day motivated. And they don't let anyone talk them out of it. They don't stop until they complete the game. And then when they complete the game, they get on to the next one and they want to complete a new game. And it's because the game is high on their values. If you stood in the room with the kids that love computer games and said, who loves computer games? Who wants to complete the computer games? They would all put their hand up. And then you would say, who has completed the computer games? And loads of them will keep their hands up because they're dedicated to fulfilling that task because it's in line with their values. So my question was, is financial freedom really high on your value list? Because if you was one of the people in the 10,000 in the room and you answered yes, well then does your actions match your values? What are you doing with your income? Are you buying things or are you buying time, as I said before? And the truth is, I always talk about buying time, right? And I'm going to be sharing some strategies on how to really, really buy back some time. But the truth is, if people find themselves in a situation where they're poor or they're broke, it's either because they don't care enough about humanity to go and serve it, or they don't know how to manage what they earn. So what I kind of said was, I put that story out and people, I got a guy message me and he said, listen, what is the point of saving and investing? We only live once. I would rather spend it and enjoy it, right? And I made the point that if you think that way, you don't value financial independence. That is a prime example of someone who doesn't value financial independence. Would you agree? Right? Because financial independence isn't about saving and saving and saving a load of cash. What it is about is it's about providing an income and providing resources that allow you to cover your lifestyle so that you can then really, really hone in on what your true values are. And you get up when you've built a cash cushion and you know that you've got living expenses to last you 3, 6, 9, 12 months in the bank. That's when your mind shift changes and you get up driven to get out of bed like the kid playing the computer game. And you want to do what you want to do and you're inspired to do what you want to do. And the people that haven't got that or don't value financial independence and they've got the attitude of, I'd rather just spend it, you only live once kind of thing. That's fine if you are that person, but you might find that when you get down the road, you become a little bit tired. You can't keep that up all the time. You can't keep that treadmill going for too long, and you'll start to resent the position you're in, because if you love what you're doing at the moment, great, and you're getting cash and you're getting rewarded for it and you're spending it on all your lifestyle, what you want, and you're getting everything that you want, and you've got this attitude that you might get hit by a bus and you would rather just enjoy it. My argument is, are you enjoying it? Because if you are, that's great. Okay? If you're not, then you're missing the point. Because, as I say, when you become financially independent and you're not reliant upon a job or a partner or a boss or a location, you're not tied down anywhere, you are liberated. And if you do love what you're doing and you're living hand to mouth and you're getting paid and you're spending it all out, well, how long can you outlast that? Have you got the energy to outlast that? Because what I find is lots of people get very frustrated with their industry or their job. Some people become a bit tired and they just really want a break. They get down the road to 50, 60 years old and they're like, oh man, I've got no backup plan. And a great way to look at it is if I was to get them in a room and we sat down at my desk in my office and I put £10 million on the table and I said, if I give you this £10 million, what would you, and you don't have to work, this £10 million is all yours and you don't need to work, what are you going to do tomorrow? And their answer will be something like, oh, well, I'd start a football club, or I'd start a fishing club, or I'd go traveling, or I would work with animals, or I'd work with old people, or, I would go and help the community. And that would be their answer. And what that means is if their job doesn't reflect what those values are, because that's their true values coming out, if their job doesn't reflect that, that means they haven't lived their life by their true values. And if the answer doesn't match what they do day to day, they're the people that are going to become frustrated, and then they're going to wish that they did say, I should have invested. Think about it this way. If this is you, there's nothing wrong with it. You might not even be aware of what financial independence is. I think this is where the grey area is, and people think it's some kind of out of reach place. The reason people don't get there is purely because they don't take the actions that align with their value, because they don't value it enough. But if you was to, I'm sure many of you have played the game Monopoly. I've played, I don't think I've finished many games because my kids end up setting up IOUs every time we play. But everyone's played the game Monopoly, okay? If you haven't played the game Monopoly, the way you win the game is you buy the most red hotels. That is it. You try and buy as many expensive assets as possible so that you generate an income higher than your expenses. So every time you go around the board, you are accumulating more than you're paying out to the other players. That's how you win, right? You win the game that way. Imagine trying to win a game of Monopoly and your strategy is to never buy an asset, never buy Park Lane, never buy anything, never buy the train stations, never buy the houses, never buy the hotels, and all you do is collect the £200 every time you go past go, or the $200. Do you think you'd win? No. That is not how you win Monopoly. So you can't win at the game of financial freedom or the game of life if you're living hand to mouth like that. If you're just collecting $200 every time you go past go, you're not going to win the game of Monopoly. You're not going to win the game of financial independence. And by the way, the probability of you being hit by a bus is very, 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 very low. Something like 1 in 700,000 people, something like that, from being hit by a bus or injured by a bus. So I think that's a bit of a kind of cheap shot, maybe an excuse in their own mind as to why they would say something along those lines. But I think the question that I've got is, for those people, it's fine if you're living day in, day out, and you've got, 2 foot in front of your nose, you've got loads of great experiences, and that's great. But my question is, are you enjoying the time? Because that, to me, is what it's all about. Financial independence, to me, is about covering my living expenses, being in a place where I've relaxed my mind enough to know that I've got the living expenses covered so that I can get up and think about what I want to do each day. And that's it. That's the whole game for me. That is the whole game for me. And I'm very much about buying time back, because I know that when I'm 50, 60, 70, although I might be doing something that I love, in fact, I'm sure I'll be doing something I love because I've deliberately angled my life around creating a life doing what I love. But you might not have the energy So at the moment, I can get up in the morning and think of ways to go and kind of help people and serve people, and I've got the energy to do that, and I'm fit and healthy, and I've got the zest and the energy to go and do that. When I'm 60, 70, right, I might not have that, but there's people going into 60, 70 with no idea about what they're going to do for retirement. They're going to have to work literally until they drop dead, and that is not an inspired life to me. What I want to do is get up and choose how I spend my day. I want to choose what I do. I want to be planning my day. I want to decide who I spend my day with. I want to decide what I do each day. Don't you? Like, that is so. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with whoever said that. I'm just saying perhaps they didn't understand what financial independence was, because that's not rare. But it's quite a if you do think like that, and you truly think like that, which I doubt, because every human being wants to evolve and become better, unless you're some kind of barbarian, right? You are going to be on the wavelength. So my advice is to start looking at ways you can buy your time back. And I'm going to give you a couple of strategies, because one of the things, many people are in a job or a business and they become frustrated with the job or the business. And I want to talk about a little process that you can use to start figuring out how you can buy your time. Because if you're in a business or you're in a job, there are ways that you can start. What the goal is to start doing things that are only aligned to your true values. So when you went back to the question and said, if you got £10 million tomorrow, what would you do tomorrow? That area, that angle, that place is where you should be designing your life around. And the goal is to kind of shift every task that you're doing and delegate it so that you can just focus on the area of life that gets you up in the morning. So one of the things you can do is, if you just open a piece of paper or a spreadsheet, write down every single task that you do in your job or your business, every single one, for every single day. So you want to write down a month's worth of tasks because you're going to do different things on different days, but write down an entire list, every single thing that you do. So, answer phones, answer emails. You might do the taxes, you might do the wages, you might do the sales run, you might check copy, you might write copy, you might do all these things. Write down every single thing that you do. And write down everything that you do that doesn't, out of the business as well. So is there any tasks that you do during the day, like cleaning and cooking and, all that kind of stuff? Write as much stuff down as you can. The next thing you want to do in the second column is write down how much income is produced from each of those tasks. And it's going to be quite intangible, quite difficult, but you can work it out. Average it out, break it down into an hourly rate. Okay, so write down how much income does every single one of those tasks generate. And, if they don't generate income, you want to start asking if they're a business related task and they're not generating income, you want to start asking questions why, right? But write down all of the income generated from each of those tasks. And then in the next column, just write down how much meaning does it have on a scale of 1 to 10. How much meaning does that task have? What's the value? How valuable is that task? So how much is it of your purpose? Okay, so how much is it valuable to you? How inspired are you to do it on a scale of 1 to 10? And you might see what we're doing here. We're kind of starting to build out this list of items that then you can start with the least inspired task, start to shift it out, and then one by one you get rid of all these things until you're just vibrating and carrying out on those highest frequency tasks, those tasks that drive you and get you out of bed. So finally, on the last column, just write down how much would it cost to delegate it. And it would be a really wise exercise to go through this seriously, go through it properly, and write down every single task, everything that you do every day for a month, write down how much income it generates, write down how much meaning does it have, how meaningful is it to you from a scale of 1 to 10, and then how much it would cost to delegate it. Now, I'm not talking about salaries and annual salaries and all that kind of stuff. An hourly cost. There's plenty of ways you can delegate. There's plenty of sites like Upwork and Fiverr where you can go and outsource different tasks. Break it down, and when you start to realize that actually my time is more important, I would rather kind of sacrifice this little bit of cash and pay for that, because in that time I can work more on the things that are meaningful to me and create more income, much more income. You might even find that some of the things that you delegate, you can still profit from, but you've just delegated it. The profit's not as high, but you've delegated it, and that's where the real profit comes in time. Have a think about that. And I was speaking to one of my private clients this week, and I kind of went through this model with them, and they said, listen, I've been working from home lately, and I've just started my business. I'm working from home. I'm trying to delegate tasks so I can focus on the bigger picture and really go after put 80% of my attention and efforts on the 20% most important to me, so I can really drive this thing forward. But what I'm struggling with is, I'm working at home and I've got the family, and there's kind of a juggle between the two. And this was very common for me. So what we find is, because we live in a world right now where you and your parents, anyone listening to this, anyone kind of millennial and older, your parents definitely are from this time where work was a workplace. Okay, there wasn't really mobile working, there wasn't online working. And what you would do is you'd go out and you'd be seen as a hero. If you went to work all day, you'd be in a factory or an office or wherever, and you would work all day, and it doesn't matter what time you come home, because you're out in the office. You might not be doing anything at the office, but you're at the office, so you're the hero, right? Dad's the hero, he's the hero, she's the hero, mum's the hero. And because you're out at work, no one sees what you're doing at the office, but you're just seen to be a hard worker. You're out at the place of work for long hours. You're working hard. Soon as you start to work from home, what you find is you've got an office. You might have an office at home, but when you choose to work at home, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, you're seen as ignoring the family. All right? You're in the office. You're choosing to ignore us. And the whole thing changes. And you're like, well, what about when I was out like till 8, 9 o'clock in the office? I was a hard worker then. Now I'm like getting it in the neck for ignoring you. And this happens. This is a genuine problem. And then what happens is there's this kind of murky grey area where the family life crosses into the work life, and no one really knows where they stand, and you feel guilty, and that you got pressure on you, and and what happens is you kind of dabble in between. Your focus and attention is never on one thing fully. You never get stuff done. You're sort of dabbling in and out, and it takes you forever to get a task done because you don't know where to start. And then you're losing time, and kind of you're trying to think, I don't know what to do first. And then you kind of start reading a book, and then you start on something else, and you start on something else. And you're trying to do too much at once because you're just trying to make the most of the time that you escape into the office. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. So what we did is we bought this. I'm going to give you a little tip now. What we found helped was when I was working in my office, like my kids would be walking about outside like zombies. Wife didn't know whether she could talk to me. Kids don't know when they can talk to you, if you're busy or what. And everyone was like in this uncertainty. And what we did is we went out and bought a massive whiteboard, the biggest whiteboard we could find. We mounted it in our kitchen, and across the whiteboard, what we did is we put all of the days of the week. So Monday through to Sunday, we put all the times on the board throughout the day. So we had this big cross-check graph chart of the week, and we picked up 4 different colour pens. So one for me, one for my wife and my 2 sons, all different colours. And the first thing we did was block in all the family time. Now, the family time's non-negotiable, so we put in all of the times where it would be me and my eldest son, me and my youngest son, me and my wife time. We had date nights, we had, which we've got tomorrow, we have a hot tub session, we had family walks, we have family lunches, we have our dinner times set in there for family. We've got a section for no technology after a certain time. We've got sections for, all different things, family board games, reading, drawing, and we book all that stuff in as non-negotiable time slots. So we put all of that on the board in a yellow or orange pen, and then we each pick our own colour, and then we block in our own tasks. So for instance, I've got on the 5 o'clock hour, I've got the gym, I've got some meditation, and then I've got my pre-market analysis. At 6, we've got the breakfast. I've got my runs in there. I've got when I do my emails on Monday and a Thursday. Then I've got all my business development stuff. I've got my newsletter stuff. My wife's got when she goes to visit her nan, and when we do the kind of order the shopping and stuff like that. All of that kind of stuff's on there. And what that does is it gives absolute clarity and structure and certainty over where everyone stands in the week. Because if there's the one thing I've learned, it's people don't have to have the full answer. They just need to know where they stand. They'd rather know yes or no, or they'd rather know, something rather than nothing and be left in limbo. So what we found is this gave us it took off the pressure. Everyone knew where they stood. Everyone was excited for the times that we were spending together. We could relax a bit and know that on Thursday night we've got this night, Saturday night we've got film night, and it really just relieved all the pressure. And I think it's essential to have a system like that in place, because it just brought, absolute certainty and just certainty to the whole family unit. And ever since we've done that, we've had people come in the house and they're like, because it's the first thing you see when you walk in the house, and they're like, wow, what's that? And you explain what it is, and they're like, oh, we need one of those. We need one of those in our house. And since then, many, many people have gone and got themselves one of these boards, and it is a game changer, absolute game changer. So a few little nuggets there, a few little strategies there. Next week, we're going to be going a bit more into the investment side. So if you're interested in investments and things like that, building wealth, we're going to be going a bit deeper into that. But just to kind of summarize this episode, guys, I just want you to think about what your true purpose is, what your true values are. What would you get up tomorrow and do if you didn't get paid? What would you do tomorrow if you didn't ever have to work again? And then ask yourself, are the actions you're taking and the way you're managing your life aligned to those values? Or are you walking off on another path? Because kind of want to rein it back in a bit. We're going on this big wealth creation journey. If you don't know what you want, you're probably not going to get there, and you're going to end up frustrated. So design your life, be who you want to be, and have a think about what your true values are. Then once you've got that, try and figure out, write down all those tasks that you do. If there's a load of tasks on there that don't inspire you and aren't by your true values, see how you can delegate them. Write down how much income they produce, how much meaning it has to you, and then how much it would cost to delegate, and start knocking those things off. Start outsourcing those, start delegating those. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but guess what? You will earn tons more money once you delegate the stuff that doesn't inspire you and you work on the stuff that really gets you up in the morning. So hopefully that's been useful, guys. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongreystone.com.